Well, so what are we gonna do today, Cousin BW?
The same thing we do every day, Melvin. Try to take over the neighborhood.
Hey y'all, Bloodwing here, back to bring some grumpiness to the internet. I know this video is a little bit later in the week than my early in the week videos usually are. I usually get it out Monday or Tuesday, but with the election and everything else going on, I've been pretty busy and pretty tired, so I procrastinate a little bit, but this video today I've had on my mind for a while, so we're going to do this thing. Today I want to change things up just a little bit and do something a little bit different than my usual fare.
Well, what do you mean, something different, Cousin BW? Are you giving up going after the SJWs?
No, don't worry, Melvin. I'm not giving up on the SJWs. In just the last 2 days alone, since Trump won, I've got enough content to last me for his entire 4-year term.
So is this going to be about the election that Trump won then?
No, this is not going to be about the election. You know, I'm just glad it's over so we can all get about our business.
So what's this mean, Cousin BW? Are you going to turn this into a cooking channel or putting on your makeup? Please tell me you're not switching sides.
No, what I'm going to do different is this isn't going to be your normal roast type video. I'm just going to talk to you more like an opinion piece, if you will. When I look at my comments, one thing I seem to see over and over is people commenting that I seem to have a lot of experience, and yes, I suppose I do. In 56 years, you learn a few things, you see a few things. And at that age, I am a bit older than most of the people in this corner of the internet. Most seem to be in their 20s and 30s, which is okay. I'm not saying I'm anything better because I'm older, but it does give me a bit of an insight that some of the others can't have.
That's because you're getting old, Cousin BW.
Shut up, Melvin. I'm very well aware I'm getting old. But the thing I want to talk to you about today is a subject that's been on my mind a lot, and especially the last couple of days with the things I've seen come out after the election, claiming that I see Twitter posts that say that they hate all white people. I've seen Lacey Green lose her mind and blame it all on white people. I've seen statistics that supposedly showed that it was all white people's fault that Trump got elected. And it just brought it even home that I need to do this video. I hope you all like it, but I'm doing this because this is something I feel I, as a person, need to do. And it's a video about racism. You know, in my time on this earth, I have seen a few things. And I was very much alive and cognizant during the civil rights movement of the 60s. I have seen with my own eyes segregation. I have seen with my own eyes Jim Crow laws. I have seen with my own eyes the cruelty committed against fellow human beings, all in the name of a difference of color. I've seen these things. I didn't read about them in a book. I didn't learn about them in a documentary. I didn't happen across it on YouTube. I lived it. I seen it. And it was terrible. It was a dark time in our country's history. But those days are over. They're done. Great men and women of every race got together. They organized numerous marches upon the South and even in the North. It wasn't just in the South. One of the most dangerous areas that Martin Luther King ventured into was Chicago, which is definitely in the North. And they may not have had Jim Crow laws per se, but there was a definite segregation going on there, and there was more of a threat to his life there than in many of the southern places that he went to. But I digress. Jim Crow's long over. It's long done. Slavery, which was terrible, it was awful, no excuse for it, was long done, is long done. And yet, all you have to do is flip on YouTube, and you will see person after person after person of not just black, but white, claiming that white people are horrible because of slavery, which was 150 years ago. So none of you are alive. I wasn't even alive. My grandparents weren't even alive during slavery. But what most of the people that bring these things up overlook is that at the height of slavery in America, at the height, only 1.4% of white Americans owned black slaves. That's at the height. Only 1.4. They also overlook that in the year 1860, an estimated 3,000 blacks owned a total of 20,000 black slaves. But these things aren't talked about because it doesn't fit their narrative. Chances are, knowing a little bit about my history, my roots, if you will, my ancestors probably never owned slaves, not in this country. My ancestors have been predominantly poor, white Southern people. And at the time that slavery existed, my people would have been sharecroppers, which still exists today if you want to look at a practice that's still bad. I have many relations down in Kentucky that still sharecrop. They get a minimum stipend each week to buy groceries with. The grocery stores and even video stores and whatever down there still run a tab that you pay once a year when the crop is sold. As part of being a sharecropper, you get a home. Not necessarily a good home, could be pretty run down, but you get a home. And you get this stipend, and you get a very small percentage of the money from the crops. Whatever crop you're raising is sold. Also, as part of that, you often have to take care of animals, pigs, cows, whatever, all for the person that actually owns the land. And by the time you sell the crops and pay off the tab that you've run up at the grocery stores and whatnot, there's very little, if anything, left. And it keeps a lot of these people in perpetual poverty. That's what my history is. So my ancestors would have been sharecroppers that maybe only had it slightly better than slaves, in that they at least had their freedom in a way. it was downright difficult, if not impossible, to escape that cycle once you entered into sharecropping. And in some ways, they had it a little worse. No, they weren't slaves, but there was no guarantee of a meal on their table every day. They weren't guaranteed things like that, where they weren't given that. They were given a home. If they were lucky, they were given a small stipend to live on from week to week. And they had to wait till the crops come in to get a very small percentage of what the crop sold for. And then all the rest of it, the by far largest chunk, went to the person that owned the land, that didn't do a lick of work to earn that. He just owned the land and allowed them to work it. And it's a system, as I said, is still very much alive and well today in parts of the country. I know in Kentucky, in tobacco country, where all my family's from, is still very much alive and well. As recent as the 1980s, I had moved back down to Kentucky for a year or two, tried farming, found out real soon I'm not cut out for it. Too much hard work for too little money. But as recent as the early 1980s, I would go out and work cutting tobacco for a penny a stalk. For each tobacco plant I cut down, I got a penny. And if you've ever seen tobacco cut, it's back-breaking work, bending over with this kind of machete-like knife, cutting it off, and you've got to impale it upon a stick so that it can be hung in the tobacco barns and be cured and dried out. And when it wasn't time for that, I'd go haul hay for $1.50 or $2 if I was lucky an hour, which was well below minimum wage at the time. And they'd pay you in cash. I don't come from rich stock, and I'm not complaining. I'm not saying boo-hoo, look at me. It is what it is. I've enjoyed my life. I've had a good life, and I'm a firm believer, and this is why I do what I do here on YouTube, in personal responsibility. I believe each person's responsible for their own fate. If you fail, it's up to you. If you make it, it's up to you. I'm not an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. Or at least I believe that I am. If things are great, then fine dandy, they're great. Celebrate a little if you want. If they're bad, then figure out how to make it better. Don't sit around boo-hoo about it. You know, I'm a firm believer in the philosophy of if life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. But anyway, guess I got off on a little bit of a tangent there. My point is that my ancestors, likely as not, never owned slaves. Might have actually been out in the fields working side by side with them. It was a great problem, but it wasn't as widespread as they want to make it out to be, because they've only read about it in books, and they listen to other people's rhetoric that twist the facts and make it look like something that it isn't. Very, very, very few white people ever owned slaves. There were black people that owned slaves in this country, but that never gets told. So, why do you hate me because I'm white because of slavery? I had nothing to do with it, and likely as not, neither did any of my ancestors. Move forward 100 years to the 60s, during the Civil Rights Movement. None of you were even alive during that period of time. All you've ever done is read it in a book, or seen it on a documentary, or watched it on some YouTube channel, or heard about it in a twisted way by some moron like Black Hitler or Sin, or some other racist YouTuber, Francesca maybe, where you're not getting the straight facts. You're getting a very convoluted version of it to fit their narrative, to promote their victimhood. In the 60s, things were bad for black people in a lot of areas of the country. There was segregation. There was whites-only areas and black-only areas. And there was violence. The Ku Klux Klan held a huge sway in many areas of the South. They've become pretty irrelevant now, which cracks me up when everybody wants to go to the Klan promotes Trump, or they're all afraid. Like you've all seen the videos. They're whining and crying and afraid for their own safety out in the streets now that Trump's been elected. The Klan is irrelevant. What, a couple thousand people, maybe at most? I'd have to look it up, and I'll be honest, I didn't, but I know it's pretty small. Probably a bigger membership in Black Lives Matter right now than there is in the Klan or in any neo-Nazi organization. And yeah, they're idiots. They're flat out stupid idiots. Any racist, I don't care what their color, is an idiot. But the civil rights was won. There was legislation passed. Federal legislation that made it illegal to discriminate against someone because of their color. And yeah, I hear all the people saying, well, only white people can be racist, black people can't be racist. And that's just so much baloney. Because what they quote to you is a definition of institutional racism. But it is not a definition of personal racism. I'm going to tell you just a little story here, real quick, that happened to me to show you that black people can be racist. Many years ago, when my children were small, I was actually working 3 jobs a day. And one of those jobs was 7 days a week. I would get up and go to work at a warehouse at 8 o'clock in the morning, get off at about 4, come home, try to get some sleep. Get back up, go to the local Federal Express hub at the airport, work for 3 to 4 hours there, hopefully get off at least by 3 a.m., drive straight from there to the local morning newspaper hub, and would work a newspaper route. I worked my tail end off to try to put food on the table. Yeah, where's the white privilege in that? What I got wasn't from privilege, it was by my own hard work. But I'd go to that newspaper, and my route I was given because nobody else wanted it. It was in an area of town called Hawville that at the time, it's changed a little bit now, but at the time was an almost entirely black neighborhood, and it was a well-known gun and knife neighborhood. And I'll tell you, on many occasions, I would be there delivering newspapers at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and hear gunfire. Not just gunfire, automatic gunfire. It was not an unusual thing. Twice I had guns pulled on me because I was a white man walking around in their neighborhood at an odd hour in the morning. Never mind that I'm carrying an armload full of newspapers. And yeah, it was a walk route. You didn't have mailboxes you could pull up to. You had to put it up on the stoop of each house. So I'd have to drive my truck that I had at the time up a few feet, get out with an armload of papers, deliver them, get back in my truck, drive up a few more dozen feet, do it over and over until it was all delivered. I had, on at least 3 occasions, drug addicts, crackheads, come out from under front stoops and whatnot and try to accost me for money or whatever. got into the elevator of an apartment complex one time on my route that had a dead ferret in the floor. This was the kind of area that it was. And I would go to collect. This is back in the days that newspaper people still carried those little flip books with the little stamp-like stickers, if you all know what I'm talking about, to show that you paid. It was supposed to all be paid by mail, but there were a few people that preferred to pay in person. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't treated badly there all the time. Mostly the older people were very nice. There was one elder black lady that was very nice to me. Gave me a big tin of home-baked cookies on Christmas and gave me an extra tip, which I never asked for tips, but she gave it anyway, wouldn't have it back. I tried to give it back to her. She wouldn't hear of it. I was treated quite well. But the younger generation, when they'd see me get out of my truck in the neighborhood, carrying that book in my hand, they'd start following me in crowds. What they didn't know is I never carried money. Not there. Now, they never hurt me. I never got robbed. I never got mugged. But it was certainly menacing. But the tale I wanted to tell happened one day after dark. It was in winter, because I remember I was wearing my snowsuit from Federal Express. And the local barbershop, I delivered to it. And for those of you who don't know, in a lot of black neighborhoods, the barbershop is a gathering place, kind of a local place for the men to gather and talk and shoot the breeze and what have you. But the barbershop hadn't paid their bill in a while. So I had to go hand collect. Didn't want to, but I had to. Pulled into the parking lot. It's after dark. I'm in my snowsuit. At the time, my hair was very long and my beard was very long. Looked kind of like ZZ Top, I guess. And I walked up from the parking lot toward the barbershop. This particular barbershop, you really didn't have much in the way of windows where you would see out, so they didn't see me coming. And it was dark anyway. The old parking lot wasn't very well lit. And I could hear them having the best of times in there. They're just laughing and cutting up and carrying on and loud and boisterous. But as soon as I went through the door, everything went dead silent. You ever see one of them old westerns where the marshal or the bad guy walks into the saloon and the music stops and everybody stops and looks at the door and you could hear a pin drop? It was exactly like that. And everybody stared at me. I didn't know what to do. So I walked up to the owner and I said, "I'm here to collect." Showed him my little ticket book. And he whispered at me, "You shouldn't be here." I said, "Well, I'm here to collect. I'm the paper boy. I need to collect your money." He says, "No, you don't understand. You're in danger here. You shouldn't be here." And I looked around and everyone's still staring at me. And it honestly never occurred to me. I was not raised racist. My dad come from the South. He had racist views as he was young, and he learned better as he got older, but he knew that that was a learned thought process. You learn to be racist. You're not racist normally. You learn it. And he made a vow to never teach that to his children, and he kept that vow. So it never occurred to me that me being a white guy might not be welcome in a black barbershop. I just never thought about it. Long story short, he paid it up, saying he'd do so if I promised to get out of there quick and not say anything. And I did. And as soon as the door shut, it was like somebody flipped the volume back on to 11. You could hear him having a good old time in there once again as soon as the white man was gone. And it was an eye-opener for me. I just never occurred to me that that might be an issue. Now, don't tell me those men in that barbershop were not racist. because the only thing different about me that brought their stares and their quiet was that I'm white. If you hate somebody because of their color, because of their nationality, because of their race, I don't care what color you are, white, yellow, brown, purple with yellow polka dots, you're racist. So just stop the garbage. But the people today that I see on YouTube that are crying so much about how white people are all racist and they're the only ones that can be racist and how they're so put upon and they're so downtrodden and they're victims, wham, 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 me. You need to get yourself out of your victimhood. Quit being a victim and stand up for yourself. Take personal responsibility. Quit blaming the white man, the institution, and everything else that you can think of for your issues. Don't give me that. Don't give me that stuff that I can't understand your black struggle. How many times have we heard that? What makes you think you can understand my white struggle? What makes you think you can understand what it's like to be a white man? You can't. You just think you do. You think you stereotype, you lump all white people into this one little neat little ball, and it makes you feel better about yourself. And if that's the way you think, you're a racist. I've seen racism. None of you have. Not like I have. Oh, you may have experienced a little bit here, a little bit there. I don't doubt that. There's still some racist people in the world. But overall, and in general, it's been fixed. There's laws in place. People's attitudes have changed. And here you've got this whole generation of young black people now promoting segregation, wanting to be separate, wanting reparation, when they don't even realize or don't care that all these things promote racism. They don't fix it. And we're starting to see it already with the election of Trump. More than anything, you can make a case for whatever you want to on why Trump got elected. But what it comes down to is that white America got tired of being called racist, sexist, misogynistic rapists. And they fought back. And if groups like Black Lives Matter keeps up their garbage, sooner or later, white America's probably going to fight back. I hope it don't get to that. I want a better world for my grandchildren than that. That's what I want for them. And it might surprise you to know, I make it no secret that I'm a white, grumpy, old redneck with some very strong roots to the South. And so it might surprise you to know that one of the people that I most look up to is Martin Luther King. I admire the man. I admire him for his vision and what he accomplished and what he'd done during the civil rights movement. He gave his life for it, for pity's sake. And I don't care how you twist his words and pick and cherry pick out of his words of the things that he's written and the things that he said and try to make it that he would be okay with the violence that you commit in the name of Black Lives Matter. It's so much bullcrap. His most famous speech of all, the I Have a Dream speech, which in my opinion is one of the best speeches ever given by anyone in this country. Black, white, any color. It's just a great, very moving speech. And we're all probably very familiar with bits and pieces of it, or seen it sometime before. But let's take a look at just a little clip of that. you hear that? He's talking about not being judged by the color of your skin. That means white people not judging black people by the color of their skin, and that means black people not judging white people by the color of their skin, or any other race. That was his dream. So Black Lives Matter, quit invoking Dr. King's name. He'd be spinning in his grave if he knew what you were up to. This is not his vision of racial equality. This violence does not fit what his dream was about. Your actions do not promote anti-racism. It does just the opposite. It promotes racism. Take it from me, somebody that saw these things with my own eyes. You read about it in a book. Somebody told you about it. You seen a documentary. You watched a YouTube video. And you think you know all about it. And you think you're owed something. You weren't even alive in any of those times. You weren't alive during slavery. You weren't alive during civil rights. Some of us were, and we saw how terrible it was. And by seeing how terrible it was, then I can see now that it's nowhere near like that. Today's world just isn't like that. So does racism exist? Yes. And it exists on both sides of the color line. There's racist white people, and there's racist black people. There's racist yellow people, and there's the racist brown people, and red people, and whatever. Racism does exist. But institutionally and overall, I don't care what color your skin is, where you come from, what your beliefs are, you have the same equality. You have the same opportunities for success that I do. And if you don't make it, the only person that you can really blame is you. Not the white man, not the cops, not the institution. You. So since you're the only one responsible for your failures or your successes, then you need to get busy. Get your butt off of YouTube. Quit all the violence. Quit all the belly aching for reparations that are never going to come. And do something about it. Go out. Get a job. Go to college. And if you go to college, don't take these mamby-pamby social studies crap. Take a core diploma. Get in one of the STEM. Get a diploma in one of the STEM areas. You know, be a scientist, be a doctor, be a lawyer. Do something. Learn something that's going to benefit you to earn a living in the future. Be responsible. Be productive. Add something to American life instead of trying to take away from it. Well, I've ranted for long enough. And this has gone on for much longer than I intended to, but it was something I needed to get out. If you stayed with me this far, thank you. If you haven't, no hard feelings. I don't blame you. I do tend to get a little long-winded. But I really wanted to get this out. But that's, I'm going to make that all that there is for this one. And as always, get out of my yard.